The Iron Ledger of Ashcombe. The Iron Ledger of Ashcombe the night the empire was stolen. Rain pressed its cold palm against every window of Ashcombe House. It slid down the leaded glass like ink bleeding from a ledger, blurring the lamps beyond the drive. Elias Ashcombe stood at the landing, one hand on the banister his grandfather had carved, listening to the thunder argue with the past. Downstairs, voices rose sharp, practiced, rehearsed, lawyers' voices, his uncle Marcus's voice, smooth as varnished oak, the voice of a man who had learned how to speak softly while moving knives. Elias was 23 and had just buried his father. He descended the stairs as though wading into deep water. Portraits watched him past stern men and women in tailored coats, eyes forward, mouths thin with discipline. The Ashcombes had built their fortune the slow way: rail, steel, shipping, then logistics and data. They had built it by keeping accounts no one else wanted to keep and by honouring contracts long after other families learned to shred them, or so Elias had believed. In the drawing room, Marcus Ashcombe stood beside the fire, his hand resting lightly on the mantel. He wore grief like a tailored suit. The solicitors flanked him, papers fanned across the table like a magician's deck. Elias's cousin Serena sat near the window, face pale, eyes bright, with something like relief. "Elias," Marcus said, smiling as though he had not rehearsed this smile for weeks. "We were just about to begin. Come in." Elias did. He did not sit. The will was read. Clauses turned. Words did their quiet violence. It comes as a series of small severings. Elias rented a narrow apartment above a bakery on the south side of the river. He found work as an analyst for a freight brokerage that barely paid for groceries. He learned what it was to be invisible, to have his name open doors only in memory. Marcus's people were efficient. Elias's accounts were audited. His contacts grew cautious. Old friends stopped answering calls. He read at night contracts, case law, histories of family enterprises that had survived coups from within. He read his grandfather's journal's photocopies. He de-smuggled out years ago dense pages of copperplate script about the sanctity of records. Trust the ledger, not the man. One line read underlined twice, and then there was the Iron Ledger. It had been a legend in the family, a master book separate from the public accounts, where long-term obligations were recorded, favors owed, covenants sworn, penalties deferred. Not illegal, his father had insisted, simply patient. The ledger was said to be kept in the iron safe, accessible only through a ritual of keys held by 3 trustees. One of those trustees had died the same week as his father. The other 2 had voted with Marcus. Elias wondered if legends were only useful when believed by the wrong people. He began to map the empire from the outside. He traced shipments, data flows, vendor contracts. Patterns emerged, deficiencies on paper, fragilities in practice. Marcus had streamlined, sold off the slow pieces, borrowed against the fast ones. The empire looked leaner, but its bones were hollowing. Elias made friends with a woman named Noor Patel, a compliance officer who had once been burned by Ashcombe, consolidated and now consulted for firms that suspected they would be next. She was precise and skeptical and kind in a way that did not require reciprocation. "You're not asking the right question," she said one night as they sat over coffee that tasted like ash. "You're asking how to prove the theft. That's not how empires change hands." "Then what is pressure?" she said. "From the places that can't be streamlined. Pressure has a language. It speaks in delivery windows and penalty clauses, in regulatory inquiries and labor shortages." Elias learned to speak it fluently. He started small. A regional port authority was overdue on a safety upgrade Ashcombe had promised years ago. The penalty for non-compliance was steep, but enforcement had been lax. Elias didn't tip the authority. He tipped a union safety rep who had been injured and ignored. The inquiry followed, then a data center in a floodplain, then a pipeline easement with a clause no one remembered except the landowner who had been promised an orchard that never materialized. Elias didn't threaten. He reminded. Marcus noticed. Shareholders noticed. Covenants that bound Ashcombe consolidated to unions, ports, municipalities' promises Marcus had violated in the name of efficiency. and the empire you hollowed. You don't have the votes." Elias placed the ledger scans on the table. "I have time," he said. "And so do they." Marcus laughed. "Brittle. You'd burn us all." "No," Elias said. "I'd keep the promises you broke." Silence settled. Outside, rain began again. The boardroom vote was not dramatic. It was procedural. It was the kind of ending his grandfather would have approved of. Marcus resigned for health reasons. The market steadied. Elias was appointed interim CEO, then confirmed. He returned to Ashcombe House, not with a suitcase, but with a stack of plans. He reopened the ledger room. The iron safe yielded to the old keys. Elias did not rebuild the empire as it had been. He slowed it. He honored the long obligations. He brought Noor in as Chief Compliance Officer and Serena as Head of River Operations. He invested in the pieces that could not be sold without consequence. Years later, when asked about the coup that never quite made the papers, Elias would smile and say, "We kept our accounts." On quiet nights, he walked the landing and listened to the rain, and the portraits seemed at last to look back kindly. "I've written a long, immersive story about a wronged heir reclaiming his family empire, and placed it in the canvas as a complete narrative titled The Iron Ledger of Ashcombe."